right, as you're coming on in, I want to just quickly talk to you for a couple seconds about innovation. I'm going to give you 8 questions. You might want to write these down. I call them the 8 nations of innovation. And these are the questions that have built Saddleback. You know, when I moved here in 1980, I had one member, my wife. I preached the first sermon. She said it was too long. It's been downhill ever since. So when I moved here, I got here about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, January 1, 1980, pulled into a real estate office, found an office that said, "My name's Rick Warren, I'm 25 years old, I'm here to start a new church. I don't have any members, I don't have any money, I don't have any support, and I need a place to live." Now that man laughed. He said, "Well, let's see what we could do." His name was Don Dale. We went out and found a condo. We signed his papers on us. He got us the first month rent free with nothing down, and that man became the first member of Saddleback Church. So as I was driving to this, to look at a condo, and I said, "Hey, Don, you go to church?" He said, "No, I don't go to church. I hate church." I said, "Great, you're my first member." I said, "I'm going to build a church for people who hate church." And over the years, I developed 8 questions for innovation. You might want to write these down. The quality of every area of your life will be determined by the quality of the questions you ask about that area. And having the courage to ask tough questions are absolutely the keys to innovation. Great innovation comes from asking great questions. If you don't ask the right questions, you're not going to get the right answers. If you don't get the right answers, you're not going to get the right strategy. And if you don't have the right strategy, you're not going to get the right results. So it all goes back to questions. Now, in our culture today, we're doing less and less critical thinking and relying more and more on pundits. And so what we have to do is we have to teach people how to think critically. So let me suggest 8 questions to spur your innovation. Now, I call these the 8 nations of innovation. They're not geographic nations, but they're psychographic nations. They're imaginations. All right, here they are. The first question is the first nation is Termi-nation. Termi-nation. And the question is this: what do we need to stop doing first? What do we need to stop doing first? Innovation begins by asking, what do we need to stop doing first? I had the privilege for the last 20 years of his life of being mentored by the father of modern management, Peter Drucker. He was my mentor. I would go up to his home, sit down, record every conversation, and every time I went to see Peter, his first question as I'd walk in the door was, "Rick, don't tell me what new you're doing, tell me what you've stopped doing." He would not let me ask him any question. He would not let me tell him what new I was doing until first I told him what I had stopped doing from my previous visit. Joseph Schumpeter, the economist, called it creative destruction. Drucker called it systematic abandonment. And so you ask yourself in your business, what do we need to stop doing first? That is the beginning of innovation. Now let me give you a little principle of life. When the horse is dead, dismount. And my suggestion is there's a lot of things you're doing in your home, in your church, in your work, in your business that have been dead a long time and you need to dismount. I'll give you one example. Here at Saddleback Church, we used to have what was called a midweek Bible study. And on Wednesday night, people would fill this auditorium, seats about 3,000, and one of my pastors would teach a Bible study. And one day he came to me and said, "Rick, you know, we're trying to start small groups in homes and in businesses all around Southern California." He said, "It isn't going to happen until we stop doing this." So we killed a program that was running several thousand people. We just stopped a very successful program so that we could begin small groups. Today, Saddleback has 8,200 small groups meeting in homes and businesses in 219 Southern California cities. We have small groups in every city in Southern California, from Santa Monica to San Diego. In fact, Saddleback is the only church that has more people in small groups during the week in businesses and church and homes than we have on the weekend. This weekend, we'll have about 25,000 people here in all of our services. But I have about 40,000 meeting in small groups all over Southern California. Why? Because we stopped doing some things in order to do the new. Termi-nation, what do we need to stop doing first? The second nation of innovation is what I call Combi-nation. The Combi-nation. And that is, what could we mix together to create something new? And this is often where innovation happens. There's a fusion, there's a union, there's a merging, there's a synthesis. You often put opposites together and you get something really new, like sweet and sour, or sweet and hot, or peanut butter and jelly, or peanut butter and chocolate. One of the things we did at Saddleback is we combined the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous with the 8 steps of Jesus' Beatitude, came up with a program called Celebrate Recovery. That program is now literally all around the world. Over 27,000 people have gone through Celebrate Recovery at Saddleback Church. It's used by tens of thousands of churches all around the world. It's used in Russia and China and Pakistan. It is the official recovery program in every state prison in America. Okay? Now, it started by asking the question of the combination. What could we mix together to create something new? Okay? Number 3, the third question is Elimi-nation. That's the third nation. Now, this is different from Termi-nation. And I want to give you 3 questions to write down on elimination. You ask about what you're doing right now in your business. First, what part could we take out to make it simpler? Everything is becoming more complex. Everybody agree with that? I don't need a gadget that does 92 things. I need a gadget that does one thing well. What part could we take out to make it simpler? That's elimination. Another one would be, what barrier could we remove to make it more accessible? That's a second question of innovation. What barrier could we remove to make it more accessible? And the third question is, what complexity could we get rid of to make it easier? Elimination. What do we take out to make it simpler? What do we remove to make it more accessible? What complexity do we get rid of to make it easier? You take down the borders, emotional, mental, spiritual, social, in these ways. How do we eliminate the complexity in this service or product? One of the questions we asked early in Saddleback is, what can we do without as a church? What can we do without? And you know what the surprising answer for us in the early days was? A building. We can do without a building. Now, who ever heard of a church without a building? But for 15 years, this church, the first 15 years, we grew without a building. And we did that for a couple reasons. First, the cost of land in South Orange County was, in the 80s, $1 million an acre. And we wanted at least 50 acres of land. We have 120 here and 170 in Rancho Capistrano. So it was extremely expensive. And then the second was these 7 planned communities in this area didn't plan for churches. When I arrived in 1980, I went to see the Mission Viejo company, and they said they planned 7 houses of worship for a city of 90,000, and they were all taken. Well, what do you do when you're a church and there's nothing to do? Well, we said, let's build a church without a church building. So for 15 years, we used rented facilities, and in the first 13 years, we used 79 different facilities. We said, we're the church where if you can figure out where we are this week, you get to come. Because we only want really intelligent people. If you can't find us, you're too dumb. Okay, but the question was, what can we do without? That's elimination. Question number 4 in the 8 nations of innovation is reincarnation. Reincar-nation. And the question I ask here when it comes to innovation is, how could we bring something dead back to life in a new form? You might think about that in your business. How could you bring back to life something that has been dead, but you bring it back in a new form? Just at Saddleback, for 2,000 years, churches have used what's called a systematic learning course. So you say you're going to learn this, then you learn this, then you learn this, then you learn this. And the technical word for this systematic learning course is a catechism. The only problem is catechisms had become old, dated, boring, and nobody wanted to do them. So we reincarnated catechism in a seminar format. And we call it the class system. And if you come to Saddleback, you go through class 101 and 201 and 301 and 401. And when you graduate, we give you a pair of 501 jeans. And we do it online, so we put the tech back in cat-tech-ism. All right? Reincarnation. What could we bring back that's been dead in a new life? Number 5, the 5th question, a nation of innovation, is coordination. Coordination. And the question you want to ask in coordination is this: how could we do it faster? How could we do it larger? How could we do it cheaper through coordination? How could we do it with a team rather than just by ourselves? How could we do it with partners? How could we do it with volunteers? Your partners could be paid partners, or they could be volunteer partners. If you get a chance during lunch today, walk around this campus and see all that's going on this campus, all that's done. What makes this church work is 27,000 volunteers. Most of you know that this last year was the most difficult year of my life. I had a son who died, and it was the worst year of my life. And by the way, thank you for your prayers. During this last year, I was gone 1/3 of the year because of grief. I wasn't even here for 1/3 of 2013, and yet it was our greatest year of growth. Our average attendance increased 4,200 people a week while I was gone. Why? Because of volunteers, coordination. And the secret of this church and our continued growth is, I said, 27,000 volunteers doing 400 different ministries or services in the community. We have a thing down here at the front of the property called the Peace Center. It has fed 100,000 families free food in Orange County. And when they started coming for food, we discovered, some of them need English as a second language, so we added that. Some of them said, we need tutoring, so we added that. Somebody said, they need job training, so we added that. Somebody said, we need a free clinic, so we added that. Some of them said they need legal aid, so we have about 100 attorneys that about every other month we do a thing called Parking Lot Justice, where attorneys come and on Saturday give free legal aid to anybody who shows up. Okay, we've had a car ministry that would repair old cars that were given to us, and we give them away to single parents who don't have the money and are trying to support a family on one income. Okay, those kind of things happen because of coordination. How do we do it faster, larger, cheaper with a team? And we've done that through our Peace Center. Question number 6 in the 8 nations of innovation is rejuvenation. Rejuvenation. And the question on that is, that I ask myself and our staff asks is, how could we change the purpose or the motivation for doing it? Rejuvenation. How could we change the purpose or motivation for doing what we're doing? You need to ask that about your business. Maybe you keep doing what you're doing, but you do it with a new motivation. You do it with a new heart, the heart rejuvenation. It's a new reason, it's a new culture, it's a new cause. You see, in innovation, it's not just what you do, it's why you do it that can be innovative. I hope you heard that. Why and how you do it. Let me give you an example. There's nothing new about diets. There's nothing new about getting healthy. But about 1.5 years ago, we started a thing at Saddleback called the Daniel Plan to get healthy. What we did is we put a new motivation and a new heart and a new reason for getting healthy behind it. And it just took off. It's a funny story how it happened. Is out here, there's a baptism pool, and I baptize. We baptize after every service. One weekend, we had an unusual thing happen, and I baptized 867 people in one day. Now, we do it the old-fashioned way, which means we put people underwater. So I personally lifted 867 people into the water and out. I literally felt the nation's obesity problem. Okay, I had firsthand experience, okay? And lowering 867 people and bringing them out of the water, that's about lifting 150,000 pounds, which is why I'm so buff, okay? All right? And as I was baptizing these 867 people, along about number 500, I had a thought, and it wasn't a very spiritual thought for a pastor baptizing. It wasn't a very spiritual. My thought was this: good night. We're all fat. That's going through my mind. I know you're not supposed to be thinking of that when you're baptizing, but that's exactly what I'm thinking. This is not your father's Saddleback. We're all overweight. My second thought was, good night. I'm fat. I'm a terrible example, and I can't expect people to get in shape if I'm out of shape. Now, the point is, I was born with an enormous amount of natural energy, and I didn't care what I looked like, so I didn't take care of my body for many, many years. And so that Sunday, I had to get up, and I said to everybody, time for true confession here. And we'll start with the pastor. You guys, I'm overweight. It's kind of obvious. Number two, I've only gained 2 or 3 pounds a year. But I've been your pastor 30 years. And I said, I need to lose 90 pounds. You could have heard the sucking sound going out of this auditorium as people were gasping when I was saying I need to lose 90 pounds. Now, I said, anybody else want to join me? We're going to do it with a new motivation. That's rejuvenation. How do you change the purpose? How do you change the delivery system? How do you change the motivation? Anybody want to join me? I figured maybe 200 people would sign up. 12,000 signed up that day. By the end of the week, 3,000 more, so it's 15,000. Now I'm going, man, I got a problem now. Because I'm not just responsible for my health, but for the health of 15,000 other people. And I know nothing about getting healthy. So I went out and I recruited 3 of my dear friends, well-known heart specialist, Mehmet Oz, a well-known brain specialist, Daniel Amen, and well-known metabolism specialist, Mark Hyman, and a Jewish guy, a Christian guy, and a Muslim guy. And I'm going, you're going to help a church get in shape. And because the religion didn't matter to me, because, if I go to a brain surgeon, I've got a brain tumor, my question isn't, do you believe in God? My question is, have you ever done this before? So we started it. Last year, I lost 60 of my 90 pounds, and I've got 30 more to go, but the church lost 250,000 pounds, okay? How did that happen? Rejuvenation. How do we change the purpose? And we said, okay, it's not to get in shape. We said, here's the spiritual purpose for being healthy. God made your body. Jesus died for your body. The Spirit lives in your body. He expects you to take care of your body. New motivation. Number 7, the 7th question of the 8 nations of innovation is what I call Elimi-nation. And Elimi-nation means, how can I look at this in a new light? How can I look at this problem in a new light? And that's why I was asking earlier, Eric Spitz, about how do you get first opinions from your customers, and how do you get opinions from people outside your company? We have a letter that goes to visitors who come to Saddleback and visit us, and there's a little postage, self-addressed stamped card that's called the first impression cards. It says, this is what I noticed first, this is what I liked best, this is what I liked least. And I ask that of people who visit Saddleback Church. You look at it with fresh eyes, in a new light. 2 years ago, as we were looking at our church with fresh eyes, we said, we need to decentralize. Saddleback has grown too big for this campus. So we decentralized. We started 8 Saddlebacks, and we have Saddleback Huntington Beach, and Saddleback Corona, and Saddleback Irvine, and Saddleback Anaheim, and Saddleback San Clemente, and Rancho Capistrano, and Laguna Woods, and Lake Forest. Starting this Easter, we're starting Saddleback Los Angeles. I'm very, very excited about that on Easter Sunday. And then we said, well, we need to even think about it in a new light. We started going international. So in November of this last year, on one week we started Saddleback Hong Kong. The next week we started Saddleback Buenos Aires. The next week we started Saddleback Berlin. The next week we sent a team to start Saddleback Moscow and Saddleback Manila. And we're starting 16 this year. Why? Thinking in a new way. Thinking in a new way. And so we're doing London and Tokyo and Bangalore and on and on. Number 8, the 8th question is Fasci-nation. Fasci-nation. And that is, how could we make it more appealing? You need to look at your product, look at your service, and you say, Fasci-nation. How do we make it more fascinating? How do we make it more mesmerizing? How do we make it more attractive? How do we make it more appealing and interesting? Now, if you live in Orange County, I highly recommend you study Disney. Because if anybody knows how to make something appealing, attractive, mesmerizing, interesting, Disney knows to do that. I love watching my grandchildren play. In fact, I'm now back into a third generation of Legos. And it's interesting, the stories they create and the pictures they draw and the uninhibited way they move to the music. You know, Picasso once said, all children are born artists. We get the creativity kicked out of us. So maybe you should recruit some children to look at your business, because they'll look at it in a way you've never seen, in a new fascination in that way. Okay, those are the 8 questions of innovation.